Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and today we're talking Final Fantasy. I've been a fan of the series on and off while I was growing up, but the first Final Fantasy I ever played was actually 7. As you might know, Square Enix has been remaking the original game, reworking and retelling the story of Final Fantasy VII in a current gen experience. You can fight in real time, delve deeper into the character stories and actually really watch them develop. It's being told in 3 parts, first with the remake that released 4 years ago in 2020, now following up with the part 2, Rebirth, releasing late February. Square Enix approached us to check out Rebirth, try the demo and talk about the experience, so thank you to Square Enix for sponsoring this video. With that in mind, be sure to use our link in the description of the video to check out the game yourself. But this came at the perfect time for me. I was meaning to try the remake after it released to PC and go back to that story and world and actually take it in as an adult. Now with Rebirth launching soon, what is this actually like for a new player to the series? Can you play Rebirth as your first game? Well, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the main point I want to make in this video. Rebirth is literally designed to be enjoyed whether you know the original, remake, or not. So I've been playing the demo, which is available now if you want to try it yourself, but it's been pretty surreal stepping back into that setting and those characters, seeing them from this third person's perspective, moving through the world instead of, top down like the original. The combat obviously was originally turn-based. Now it's action real-time combat, heavy on the combos and flashy abilities, party swapping. But if you do want more of an old style, you can choose between the either active or classic playstyle. Classic has your actions performed kind of automatically if you want to execute commands and see them taken, rather than fighting that action style. But it is crazy how I still remember many key moments from my time with the original. The opening of the game with Barrett and the Scorpion mech enemy, the infiltration of the mob with the whole cross-dressing madness, or yeah, Sephiroth in general. So diving back into that world with these remakes has been something I've been planning on doing at some point, so let's talk about remake for a second. Rebirth is the second of this new trilogy, right? Retelling things. When you actually open this demo, you have the option to see the story so far to get up to speed, but we do open with a kind of flashback prologue section which introduces things nicely in its own way, but I want to reference the first game that does lead to Rebirth so we can go into this with some context. Like I said, our story is the original but retold with big changes, setting up the world for Rebirth. Within Remake, the original conflict that started everything did stay the same. The Shinra Power Company are fueling the city of Midgar, but in doing so, they're draining the planet of its essence to do it. That is corrupting and kind of killing nature, and surely the planet after that. To stop that from going too far, a rebellion formed, an anti-Shinra force called Avalanche. And that opens the original game in the same way, in that classic scene with Cloud, the blonde-haired Buster Sword user, riding on top of it, flipping down. Cloud is actually a former Shinra soldier, joining the rebellion as a mercenary, going against his former masters. Avalanche's objective here is pretty simple. Destroy the reactor here that is powering the plants to stop the draining of the planet. That's where the game opens. You meet Barrett on the way, the leader of the rebellion group. You face off against the updated Scorpion mech and successfully destroy the reactor. Now upon exit, you once again meet the important Aerith, who is selling flowers in the street near the plant. You reunite with Tifa, Cloud's childhood friend and fellow rebeller. But obviously just one reactor being destroyed is just the start of things. You need to keep going and get rid of them all. Since they expect that, Shinra prepared a plan. They intentionally destroy a whole district of the city, killing, most of the people within that, and then blame that on the rebellion, who obviously were just blowing up a massive reactor, so it makes sense that they could accidentally go too far on their next attempt. In that aftermath, Aerith is kidnapped, and Cloud and the team kind of fight to save her, only to encounter the awesome Sephiroth, resulting in the classic chaos. Sephiroth has become so power hungry that he wants to take over. He wants to use the planet's life stream for himself, trying to attain some kind of otherworldly strength like a god. The end of that leads to a kind of climactic fight with Sephiroth, which Cloud actually overcomes if not truly defeats. A lot of the different events are twisted and changed, setting up the world for the new journey in Rebirth. We're just kind of arriving in the village of Calm, away from the city itself. And this says nothing about the details of, say, the expansion or the key characters, their relationships, their introductions, the many twists that change the arc of their stories. So if you are a fan of the original game, I do think that's going to be a main point to keep in mind. Now that aside, the demo and the sort of prologue. As we open, we're actually together in a room discussing what just happened in those events and why at the end of Remake. We're talking about what led up to it 5 years ago to explain who and what Sephiroth really is. It all takes place in Nibelheim, which is where Cloud and Tifa grew up together. We're gonna go there to investigate a research and development version of a reactor to find out what's going on with it, why it's malfunctioning. This happens with Sephiroth heading up the team that Cloud just so happens to be part of. And that means we play as both Cloud and Sephiroth during this flashback. It gives a real context as to how simple and straightforward Cloud's fighting starts as. Well, you've got Sephiroth, who is just an absolute machine, with this massive gap between the two in combat power. It's told in a pretty interesting way though. We're hearing a retelling of these events from the perspective of Cloud, whose memory might be hazy or intentionally held back at parts. Like when you visit your mother in town, you kind of skip through all of that, and Cloud doesn't really want that personal part expressed. While on the other hand, you meet the trainer of Tifa, and at the time, Cloud didn't really believe Tifa could be that good of a fighter. And during these moments, the voices of the others listening interrupt or interject. Maybe they scold or even tease. It's like we're playing this demo, and that demo we're playing is being watched by the party above. So it's pretty cool. It adds a lot of depth to the way it's told. At times, we'll also jump back to the present and watch the team kind of discuss what's just been explained or shown, ask questions, and even push us forward in time a bit because of that. Here though, we can move around the town a bit, wandering around and meet the people, find some extra items. It's not like fully freeform, but it's a little touch like that where, hey, we can actually move around the town and look around. That adds something new for an original player. And while we explore that town, there's literal crowds of people moving around wherever Sephiroth is, highlighting, you know, how famous and respected he is. All the eyes are on him. Almost every conversation you pass is about him. Only a few people even go, oh, Cloud, you look bigger. And when Sephiroth finished meeting with the mayor, he moves over to the inn, and you know that because the crowd is now standing outside there. It's interesting to see during this section as well the state of things with the characters. 5 years ago, when Cloud is fresh and new, it's very different, and so is Sephiroth. Cloud's desperate for action. He wants to prove himself, earn a name. He's taking risks, he's jumping in first, and he's pretty foolish and immature about it while desperately trying to impress Sephiroth. Meanwhile, Sephiroth is kind of surprising in his humor. He cares for the men, he compliments them when they do something useful. He's also quite kind to Tifa, who's guiding you at the time, stopping to admire the terrain and sounding like an overworked veteran. So I really like this version of him for the brief period we get it. But obviously in this flashback, we know it's explaining what happened and why he changes, becoming that powerful villain we know today. So as you progress up through the valley to the reactor, Sephiroth does have that moment where he kind of realizes what he might be and why, and it follows on with some pretty major events that I'm not going to spoil. It's done very well, paced out nicely, it's very cool to see in this way. But that's the context. The main events of the demo are prologue as it is. Let's now talk some gameplay and the vast differences that I remember compared to the original. Kicking off with that action combat in the active mode. Between playing as Cloud and Sephiroth then, like I said, the difference between them is massive, and it's very intentionally done to demonstrate that big gap between them. Initially, you're playing Cloud and you have basic attacks with using square. You can tap it for different uses. Maybe you tap it just standing there, or you use a dash and then do it, and that'll do a ranged attack. Or you can hold it down so you can do it after a basic attack for some follow-up combos. If you do it after a dash, you'll do an aerial combo. You can naturally block to reduce damage, or if you block right as you're about to be hit, you'll nullify and do a react hit. Enemies, when taking damage or after certain attacks, they build up a stagger meter, so when you feel that, it stuns and exposes them, giving you opportunities to punish and even dealing bonus damage. On top of that, you have your abilities like the spells. We use the materia to cast these. Essentially, whichever materia we have equipped, it allows us to use different spells. I'll explain that in a moment. Cloud starts with these simple, say, fire style shot or juggle style blizzard attack with some suitable follow-ups, and each character has their own special attacks using their ATB gauge compared to MP for spells. Some are better depending on the situation. Cloud has one attack where he can kind of thrust lunge, gap closing but also building up stagger, or there's a triple attack punish, or an attack that actually does more damage if you use it while you're in the air. Mid-combat, you can press the commands menu to slow things down, take stock and choose to use an item, one of these abilities or spell, and then choose who you're going to target to use it on. The moment combat's too much or you want to slow things down, you can open this menu and work out what's next. So it kind of has that turn-based element in a way, because you can do that at any time. Now, Cloud comes with two combat modes, Operator and Punisher. Operator is the more balanced one, good for dealing with ranged enemies or general situations, while Punisher allows for guaranteed block punishes. So whether you perfect time guarded or you're just holding it, it'll treat it like you did. So it's great against melee enemies, but it's pretty exposed against magic or ranged. It'll also increase the effect and deadly nature of his combos, so it's very good to be using when you're about to punish an enemy, hence the name. So I found myself swapping between these modes of attack pretty often, relying on Punisher whenever I could, but playing on Operator to be safe when needed. And then finally, of course, we have the classic limit break. When that bar's filled during combat, you can unleash some insane attacks unique to each character you're using it on. And this is all just, you know, the basics. It gets more and more advanced as you go through just the tutorial section. The materia you find will play a huge role in that progression. We find them all over the place in these hidden areas too. There isn't much off the beaten track exploring in this specific section. We know the game opens up a lot more after this, but you do get rewarded for looking around. By doing so, you'll find different materia which you can then equip to your gear, be that your weapon or different armor options. They come with different slots to work with. Slotting in different kinds of materia results in a different ability to use, like assess. That helps you understand an enemy's weakness before you get into the fight with them for real. Or support a current materia. A slot that's connected will then support a current materia, making it, say, wider reaching in the effect, or auto cast. So mid-combat, when you're not using that character, they'll automatically use that spell. We can also level these materia to enhance them, giving us new high-level spell options when we do. So compared to Cloud, Sephiroth is insane. Not only is his base combat so much faster, and he's got his own combat style and different mechanics, but he comes with loads of materia options that are actually set up correctly and supported in different ways, which allows for greater range and effect. With him, I'm able to use a bunch of different spells, like Thunder to AoE really well, or target specific boss parts during a fight, even at range. His spells work ridiculously strong and so reliable with the slowing of time to cast them, so very easy for targeting. In Sephiroth's combat case though, you can combo and then use triangle at the right time to thrust punish with a juggling enemy, or hold block right and then press triangle while holding to parry at a specific time, so a different mechanic for parrying compared to Cloud. And when playing in a party, that's where things really get going. You can rely on the party to swap between the different characters mid-combat, so when one gets stunned or even knocked down, you can smoothly swap off them to keep fighting. If one has some ATB ready to spend, you can just swap to them, use it and swap back. Maybe you swap to someone and use a spell or heal someone and then swap off them while that animation actually, takes place. Why should you slow down? You can even use synergy style skills, abilities that don't consume ATB charges. Each character being actively used will get their own options. So with Sephiroth, it was this consecutive physical combo with both fighters at once. While for Cloud, you had this kind of charged up powerful Buster Sword slam called Void Shatter, or a counterfire reaction. In the boss fight, we were shown their special double helix ability. Specifically for these two, used in their own flashy animation, it looked awesome, almost like a limit break. And all of this is so much to take in during just the tutorial. It's paced pretty well, but I do feel like it really threw it at me consistently. I'd get a new mechanic or detail to consider, I'd try it, and then they'd throw another at me pretty much right after. So it kept challenging me basically to add more and more to how I'm fighting. There were a couple moments where I definitely had to take the time to really get it and apply it, but as soon as I did, it was very impactful. And other characters are going to have their own combat styles and unique mechanics too, right? They'll have their own abilities, their own spell options, and their own resources and synergy attacks. So in the full game, it's definitely going to be interesting to kind of actually test all of these. What party combos are going to work best? What synergy combos are going to be that helpful? Lastly, for the combat, there was also a special boss fight at the end of the demo with an enemy called the Materia Guardian. This showcased how against bigger foes, there's a bit more to them. You can actually target different body parts, which have their own health bars. When you put those to 0 health, it'll break them, building up stagger, which is nice, but mechanically, it also limits their attack options. Without, say, that limb, it couldn't hold on to the person grabbed anymore, so it would release them from its grasp. Or if you break the limb, in general, they can't do that. So there's lots to consider here, from the enemy types and the different weaknesses, how to build up stagger on them as fast as possible. You've got your ATB skills you've got to manage and make sure you're using. You've got your MP you've got to stay on top of, keeping everyone healthy. I was only playing on the hardest difficulty in the demo, which is normal, I think. And I did have a hard time on one enemy, having Sephiroth get knocked down at one moment. But other than that, I was able to kind of keep on top of it. But I did feel genuinely challenged. There's more than enough here in terms of combat mechanics to understand. And I can feel like once I get really good at it, it's going to be very rewarding. Now, outside of the demo and what we've been able to play, Square Enix has provided us with different clips to take a look at and consider. We know in the full game that there's going to be a lot more freedom of exploration compared to the demo and the prologue part being a bit more on tracks with a little bit to explore. In the full game, we are going to have this massive world and these big regions to wander around. If you look at the world map, you can see the different regions with completely different terrain and vibes, but they're all connected to each other. We start in the grasslands just south of Midgar, with the Junon region just to the west of that. There's the coral region across the main ocean, where we've seen those clips of the characters riding around a bunch of different vehicles. That's also where, of course, we'll find the Gold Saucer, that crazy casino-style amusement. There's also the Gongaga region, with Zack's hometown being there. Or you could go back to the Nibble region and see what's become of all of that after the events of the prologue 5 years ago. To explore these places, there is a familiar mechanic with towers, where you gather world intel to reveal all the different activities that are nearby that tower. It won't actually reveal and expose everything, the grey will still cover the map until you go there yourself, but it will highlight different objectives and side content you can go challenge, basically to encourage you to go explore it yourself. The idea here is to perform these different tasks to help a character called Chadley enhance his research and in turn help you with materia. We've seen a lot of different examples of mini-game style stuff with wrangling Chocobo, managing Mooglets, or most interestingly, those Titan summon crystals. You go find one, you deal with a mini memory game to remember the order of inputs and then send them out in the right order. These seem to unlock a Titan-related simulation challenge, divine or unique enemies to fight, and unlock powers tied to them. There's also a main feature of the exploration being the proto-relics. Each of these you hunt down will feature their own side stories with new characters and many of those new mini-games to be. They're hinting that by collecting all of the proto-relics, some new major events in the story will happen. But if you want to go deeper, there are side quests called odd jobs to take on. You just take on jobs from different people you meet with unique and, well, sometimes odd requests. You're going to solve their issues and learn more about the region and what's going on there with that, and obviously try to make it better. Odd jobs also might affect your relationship with your party, which is another feature, relationship bonding you're gonna have to manage. And I've got to say, some of the clips and examples we've been shown look insane. There's the whole turning into a frog to stay on a platform longer than others. Cloud keeps his Buster Sword on somehow, while Tifa's got a whole outfit nearly on. Or like the original Final Fantasy character designs fighting in like a boxing arena or something. Not all of these mini games and silly options are vital though, or even tied to any specific side quest. They've made it clear that, they put them in for fun. They highlighted fan favorites like G-Bike and Chocobo Racing. Those are going to be back, and of course options to play when you want. It does look like the devs have had a lot of fun creating these different options, and I'm getting the feeling it's going to become kind of a main selling point for the game. They've really gone hard on it. One interesting mechanic for side content that rewards you heavily is Chadley in general. I mentioned that it'll help you uncover the map and reveal interesting objectives around the place, but his combat simulation should serve a lot of purpose with him. There's going to be combat training options to help you understand the different combat styles and mechanics of each character, since they're going to be giving you a lot of different options based on what we've learned in the demo with Sephiroth and Cloud. But there's also specific simulations, these challenges, that you have to first unlock to then be able to actually attempt. These simulations reward you with different things, like types of materia to then grab and have, so you can slot them into your gear of your party. To unlock these options, you'll have to go out and do specific things like defeat classified foes or specific foes in a certain amount, assess different enemies in the right region. The more you're doing in that region, the more simulations you'll be able to run, and then the rewards for them seem very worth it. In fact, some of those materia rewards had 2 stars, so there'll be higher level spells unlocked through this system. And like I mentioned already, it'll also involve the Titans when you find those and other unique enemies, which should be particularly good rewards on top. There's also very important character progression systems in place too. As you play and improve, you'll be gathering SP for your characters, which is spent on the folio upgrades. These offer you a lot of different options, special abilities for the character you're upgrading, new synergy skills or progressions, or even just raw stat boosts like increased health. Some of these do seem really important. I saw an ability called Snow Flurry for Cloud, which gave him a way to deal ice damage without having to spend MP to do like an ice spell, with enemies having element weaknesses revealed when you assess them. Using the right element or type of attacks can massively speed up the rate at which you're dealing damage and staggering them, and in doing so start to really destroy their health while they're staggered. But further, by getting the Snow Flurry ability in this case, it also passively increased the power of ice materia spells themselves, making them even stronger rather than, say, making them useless since you have that ability instead. This clip also revealed to me that synergy skills work differently with different partners. This ranged blade skill specifically works with Barret and Red. If used with Barret though, it'll become a physical attack. On the other hand, if you use it with Red, it becomes a magical attack. So once again, tying into what might be best used in that moment, depending on what it is you're actually attacking. The characters will all earn their own SP though, so it's not like you'll only be upgrading one character at a time. It looks like you'll reach 10 SP at its limit at least originally, so well worth spending rather than letting that cap and go to potential waste. But yeah, I think I'll call the video here. I've had my own experience and also looked at lots of what's coming in the game itself. But these have just been my first thoughts and overall look at the demo and the game itself. This has been a really nice way to get back into the world, and yeah, see it in an updated way. I was concerned that Rebirth would be hard to kind of step into if I missed Remake, but to find that they've set it up with that in mind, so that's not a problem. It's very intentionally done, and that's been a relief. I hope this video has been interesting and useful to you, and if you've enjoyed this look and want to try it yourself, then be sure again to click the link in the description so they know we sent you. Thanks again to Square Enix for sponsoring the video, and if you guys have anything else you want to add for maybe others taking a look at the game for the first time, then drop it in the comments. Until next time though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.